The room went dead silent. It was supposed to be just another prime-time interview, one of many between Tucker Carlson and Vice President J.D. Vance. They had laughed together, challenged Washington together, even shared family stories off camera. America saw them as a united front, fearless voices standing up for the forgotten class. But something felt off from the first second. Tucker leaned forward, his face tighter than usual. He didn't crack a joke. He didn't smile. Then, without warning, he said something that made millions of jaws drop. "JD, it's time people know who you really are." JD blinked, confused, hurt. Millions watched, frozen. Was this real? Tucker's voice trembled, not with nerves, but with something darker. "You say you're for the people, but I've seen the deals. I've seen the silence. You're not the man you pretend to be." JD's eyes welled up. This wasn't politics. This was personal, and it was happening live. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. And somewhere in a quiet living room in Ohio, JD's mother clutched her chest in fear, whispering, "What are they doing to my boy?" People say a TV moment lasts seconds. But that one, it lasted forever. In just 10 seconds, everything J.D. Vance had built with Tucker Carlson crumbled into dust on national television. Phones buzzed, newsrooms lit up, Twitter exploded. Tucker Carlson exposes J.D. Vance live. Some were shocked. Others smiled, but J.D. sat still, his hands trembling slightly beneath the desk. "I've always been honest with you," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Tucker didn't flinch. "You've been honest with me," he replied coldly. "But have you been honest with them?" He motioned to the camera, to America. JD's throat tightened. He remembered the steel mills of Middletown, Ohio. He remembered growing up without a father, watching his mom fight addiction. He remembered how he climbed, not to power, but to purpose. Was it all unraveling now? He could feel America staring. Somewhere in the back, a producer gestured to cut the feed. But Tucker waved him off. This wasn't over, and as JD tried to form words, all he could see was the betrayal in Tucker's eyes. "Why, Tucker?" he asked, but Tucker didn't answer. Not yet. After the show cut to commercial, JD sat in the dressing room, alone. No aid, no cameras, just silence. He looked into the mirror. His face was pale, like the blood had drained out. His chest felt heavy, like someone had driven a nail through it. A knock came. He expected security, maybe a staffer. But it was Tucker. JD stood. "Why did you do that to me?" Tucker stepped in, eyes glassy but furious. "Because you forgot where you came from." "What are you talking about?" JD's voice cracked. "You made promises," Tucker said. "To your people, to me. And now you're sitting in meetings with the same elites we swore to fight." JD stepped closer. "I never betrayed you. I never betrayed anyone. You just don't know the full story." Tucker shook his head. "Then tell the world, or I will." Then he left. Just like that. JD sat down, gripping the arms of the chair. The past 2 years rushed through his mind. Every decision, every sacrifice. He hadn't changed, but something had. And maybe someone wanted this to happen. Something deeper was at play. He felt it in his bones, and he knew, this isn't about me and Tucker. It's about something bigger. In Middletown, Ohio, JD's mother, Bev, sat trembling on her worn-out couch. The TV was off now, but her heart was still racing. She had seen the whole thing. Her son, her baby, was humiliated on national television by the very man who once called him America's future. She knew JD's story better than anyone. He had grown up in chaos and hardship, not power and wealth. He had survived more than anyone ever knew. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered a prayer, the same one she'd prayed when JD was just a little boy trying to sleep through the sound of police sirens outside their window. "Please don't let them break him." Meanwhile, JD sat alone in the car outside the studio. He didn't even call security. He just sat there, staring. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt most was not knowing why. Was this about a policy disagreement, a setup, or something darker? His phone buzzed. A single text lit up the screen. They warned you. Now it begins. Anonymous JD's grip tightened. This isn't just Tucker, he thought. This is war. Back in D.C., the vice president's office was unusually quiet. JD's chief of staff, Mariah, had stayed late. She knew JD needed space. But she also knew something wasn't right. She remembered something JD had once told her. If anything ever goes sideways, check the top left drawer. So she did. Inside, beneath a stack of notebooks, was a sealed envelope marked, "Read only when trust is broken." Hands shaking, she opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. Not official, not political, just personal. If you're reading this, then I've been betrayed by someone close. Maybe Tucker, maybe someone else. But this isn't just about me. There's a plan, and it doesn't end with me. Look into the Freedom Bill. Follow the money. And whatever you do, protect my mother. Mariah's stomach turned. The Freedom Bill, the one JD had pushed to help working families, was being quietly attacked in Congress. Someone was trying to twist it, and suddenly, it made sense. Tucker's rage, the smear, the timing. This isn't about JD's past, she whispered. It's about his future. And who's trying to steal it? She picked up her phone. It was time to fight back. That night, JD sat across from his mother in her small kitchen. The fridge buzzed quietly. A half-empty coffee cup sat untouched between them. "I'm sorry, Mama," JD said softly. Bev reached across and held his hand. "You've got nothing to be sorry for, baby." "I let them in," he said, eyes down. "I thought Tucker believed in what we were building. But now I think maybe he never did." Bev squeezed his hand tighter. "You remember when you were 9, she said, "when that landlord tried to evict us in winter? You stood in front of the door and told him, 'You'll have to carry us out in the cold.'" JD smiled through his tears. He did remember. "You've always been strong," she said. "But the world doesn't like strong boys from towns like ours." JD looked at her, heart breaking and healing at the same time. "I'm not going to stop, Mama," he said. "I'm going to finish what I started. Not just for me, for us, for everyone they forget." Bev nodded. "Then make them remember." Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters waited. But JD Vance wasn't hiding anymore. He was ready to speak. Mariah didn't sleep. She stayed in the office all night, chasing threads, emails, policy drafts, meeting logs. Around 3 a.m., she found something chilling buried in a shared folder marked Public Relations, a document labeled Operation Drop Anchor. Inside, strategy memos, talking points, and a name list. JD Vance was right at the top, marked Target. Beneath that, Tucker Carlson. There were dates, weeks before the interview, and even coordinated tweets, press leaks, and quotes prepared in advance. Controlled fallout to fracture populist base. Tucker as trigger, Vance as weakened figurehead. Mariah's hands trembled. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a setup, orchestrated by deep-pocketed lobbyists and political elites who hated JD's Freedom Bill and his refusal to play their game. They had used Tucker, or maybe threatened him. Mariah hit print. Outside, the sun was rising over Washington. People were already starting their day. But what they didn't know, not yet, was that democracy had nearly been hijacked overnight, and the only person who could stop it was the man they were trying to break. JD. JD stood by the window in his Capitol office, watching the sunrise cut through the fog. His phone buzzed. It was Mariah. He picked up, voice low. "Tell me." "You were right," she said. "This wasn't just Tucker. It was bigger. I found the files. They planned all of it. You were the target." JD's stomach dropped, but his eyes didn't move from the sky. "Did you send it to anyone?" "Not yet," she whispered. "They'll come after me." JD was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "We don't go public, not yet. We go quiet, we go smart, and we go honest." He turned from the window and looked at the picture of his grandfather, the man who taught him to stand tall, even when life was unfair. "They think this will destroy me," JD said, "but they forgot. I've been broken before, and I got back up." Mariah's voice cracked. "What do we do?" JD's tone sharpened. "We show America the truth, piece by piece, gently, honestly. We don't fight for me. We fight for them, the folks no one else fights for." And in that moment, JD Vance was no longer just vice president. He was a man on a mission. 3 days passed. America was still buzzing from the viral Tucker clip. News outlets screamed betrayal. Pundits painted JD as weak, dishonest, fake. But in a crumbling diner just outside Youngstown, Ohio, a place that hadn't seen new paint in 20 years, a waitress named Shirley turned up the volume on an old radio. A local station had just gotten its hands on an unreleased recording. JD's speech, one he gave privately, off camera, to a town meeting weeks ago, was somehow leaked. In it, he didn't talk about power or politics. He talked about his mother's recovery, about sleeping in his car, about the broken kids in forgotten schools, and how the Freedom Bill was never about votes, just survival. "People ask me what I want from Washington," JD's voice echoed. "I just want them to care like my grandpa cared when he gave his last dollar to a neighbor. That's why I'm here. That's why I won't back down." Shirley wiped her tears. A truck driver nearby stood, hands on his cap. One by one, America started to remember who JD really was. Not perfect, not polished, but real, and worth fighting for. JD sat across from the president in the Oval Office. The room was quiet, too quiet. "They want your head," the president finally said, placing a red folder on the desk. "Some of our biggest donors are pulling back. They think you're dividing the base." JD didn't flinch. He'd heard worse growing up in a house where yelling meant someone was still alive. "I'm not dividing anything," JD replied. "I'm just not lying." The president sighed. "You're fighting ghosts, JD, deep ones. These people don't care about truth. They care about control." JD stood slowly. "With respect, Mr. President, I didn't come here to play chess with people's lives. I came here to fight for the ones nobody sees." Outside that room, whispers moved like wind through the West Wing. JD was a problem, a risk, maybe even a liability. And yet, far from that polished office, in small towns, living rooms, and factories across America, people were listening, watching, not to Tucker, to JD. Because when you've been broken by life and still show up with honesty in your eyes, people don't forget that. They lean in. And that's exactly what the elites feared most. Nobody expected a single letter to shake the country. It came from a 14-year-old boy in Arkansas named Benji, whose father had died from an overdose just 6 months before. His mom worked 2 jobs. Some days there was no dinner. But Benji had seen JD speak on TV once and remembered how he talked about growing up with nothing and still dreaming big. So he wrote, "Dear Vice President Vance, I heard people saying you're fake and that your friends don't like you anymore. But I know you're not fake. You're like me. You talk like someone who lost something and still keeps going. Please don't quit. You're the only one who makes me feel like I matter." The letter got posted by a local pastor on Facebook. By midnight, it had been shared over 4 million times. Celebrities tweeted it. Truck drivers printed it. JD read it alone in his office and cried. It wasn't the betrayal that broke him. It was the quiet belief of a boy who had lost so much, yet still held on to hope. That night, JD made a choice. Not to fight back, but to stand taller. The nation waited. Would Tucker respond to the leaks? To the wave of support JD was getting from real people. The working poor, the veterans, the kids no one saw. He didn't. He stayed quiet. But insiders said he wasn't well. A former producer claimed Tucker had confided. They forced my hand. It wasn't supposed to go that far. I didn't know they'd cut it like that. Was Tucker a villain, a pawn, or both? JD never responded with anger. In a brief press moment, when asked if he blamed Tucker, JD simply said, "I don't blame anyone who's hurting. I just wish they'd talk instead of yell." America was listening now, not for drama, but for truth. And what they heard in JD wasn't politics. It was pain wrapped in purpose. At a time when most leaders fought for airtime, JD disappeared from the cameras for a week, not to hide, but to sit with grieving families in East Palestine, to eat in soup kitchens in Detroit, to remind himself and America who he was fighting for. This wasn't about an election anymore. It was a battle for hope itself. It happened at 6:42 a.m. at Reagan National Airport. J.D. Vance had just returned from a surprise trip to a small coal town in West Virginia. No press, no camera crew, just him, a worn backpack, and tired eyes. As he walked toward baggage claim, a woman in her late 60s stood frozen in front of him. Her name was Carmen Morales, a retired nurse whose husband had died during COVID. She had lost faith in politicians, until JD. Tears welled in her eyes. "You came," she whispered. JD paused, confused. "Ma'am?" "You were in Welch. My grandson saw you talking to the old miners. No speech, no microphone. Just listening." She grabbed his hand, trembling. "They turned on you, but we haven't. You're the first one who made us feel seen. Please don't stop." JD was silent. He gently nodded, squeezing her hand back. A reporter nearby caught the moment on a blurry iPhone video. It went viral by noon. No rant, no speech, just a vice president, being human. And in a world burning with noise, that quiet moment roared louder than Tucker's tirade ever could. 3 nights later, Tucker Carlson finally broke the silence. But it wasn't public. It was a private call. Just him and JD, no staff, no cameras, no spin. "Tucker," JD said as he picked up, "did you mean what you said? Or was someone pulling your strings?" There was a pause, then Tucker's voice cracked slightly. "I didn't mean for it to go like that. But I was cornered. There are people, JD, powerful people. You were getting too close." "Too close to what?" JD asked softly. "The truth. And the people who profit off hiding it." JD stayed calm. "You had my number, Tucker. You could have called before you blew it up live on air." "I know," Tucker whispered. "I was afraid. They made me afraid." JD didn't hang up. He didn't yell. He just said, "I forgive you." That stunned Tucker more than anything. He expected anger. He got grace. But JD wasn't doing it for politics. He'd spent his life climbing out of pain and had no time to pull someone else into it. He ended the call with 6 simple words: "Let the people decide the truth." And just like that, the final act was set. The National Conservative Summit was never meant to go this way. It was supposed to be a celebration of unity. But with the 2028 election looming, the GOP was at war with itself. And now, for the first time in 5 years, JD and Tucker would appear on the same stage. The room was electric. Millions watched online. Commentators whispered that this was either the rebirth of a movement or the end of one. Tucker spoke first. He was polished, strategic, but nervous. Then JD took the mic. No teleprompter, just his voice, worn but steady. "I didn't come here to fight Tucker," he began. "I came here to fight for you, for every mom working 2 jobs, every soldier who came home to silence, every kid who wonders if anyone's listening." The crowd leaned in. JD paused. His voice dropped. "Some folks sold their soul to stay relevant. I'd rather lose everything than lose myself." A woman in the crowd gasped. A young man wept. Then something happened no one expected. Tucker stood up and clapped. One by one, others followed. And in that fragile, powerful silence, a movement began again, not with noise, but with truth. It was never supposed to be seen. A staffer leaked the video anonymously to a small blog. But within hours it was on every platform. Millions of views, reposts, reactions. The footage showed JD Vance in a closed-door meeting. No suit, no camera lights, just raw humanity. He was speaking to a group of young veterans. One of them sobbing uncontrollably, scarred by war and forgotten by the system. And JD? He didn't promise them glory. He didn't give a speech. He got on his knees, face level with the man. "I can't fix the past, but I swear to God, I'll fight for your tomorrow." That moment silenced the noise. Even critics stopped tweeting. People began to say, "I don't care what party he's from. That's a real man." Tucker's tirade faded into background noise. The movement had shifted, not with a debate, but with a whisper of hope. 3 days before the GOP convention, Tucker Carlson received a handwritten letter. No cameras, no signature. Just 5 words at the top. "I still believe in you." It was from JD Vance. Tucker stared at it, unmoving, for minutes, maybe hours. He didn't deserve that grace, not after what he'd done, not after how he'd folded under pressure from donors and political blackmail. But JD saw something deeper, not a traitor, a broken man caught in the same storm. The letter ended. "You were once the voice of people who had none. Don't forget who you are, even if they've tried to make you forget. Stand up again, Tucker. The country still needs your voice, not theirs." That night, Tucker canceled his next 3 shows. And for the first time in months, he walked alone into a church in Virginia. He sat in the back pew, and he wept. Not out of guilt, but because someone still saw light in him. The GOP convention stage was set. JD Vance stood beneath the blazing lights, the weight of a divided nation on his shoulders. But he didn't talk about polls, or power, or revenge. He told a story of a boy from Middletown, Ohio, raised in chaos, haunted by addiction, saved by love, purpose, and grace. He paused, voice shaking. "My mother sat alone in the dark once, wondering if anyone cared if she lived. Today, I stand here for her, and for every forgotten American who thinks their pain doesn't matter." The arena fell silent. Not even phones clicked. JD's eyes glistened. "I don't want power to punish. I want it to heal. We can be better, and we will, together." As he stepped back, wiping tears, the crowd rose. Then something no one predicted happened. Tucker Carlson walked onto the stage and hugged him. No words, just silence. And then the crowd erupted, not with noise but with tears. Grown men cried. Women clutched their hearts. Because for the first time in years, America felt hope again. If this story moved you, if you felt a tear, or if you believe in healing over hate, please hit that like button, subscribe to this channel for more stories that touch the soul, and comment below. I believe in second chances. Let's flood the comments with hope. Let's prove that kindness still wins, even in politics. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the quietest hearts make the loudest impact.